right, good morning. This is the Friday morning writing tutorial. I'm Stacy Carroll. I'm a freelance writer and fiction novelist. I've written more than 50 books and short stories, books and books of short stories, and thousands of freelance writing articles. So, right here today, we are going to talk about how to create compelling characters, a guide for new writers, right? So, if you want to write a short story or a novel, this is your tutorial on how to write compelling characters. So, this will be cool, folks. Hang in there. We're going to teach you something. So, creating compelling characters is one of the most important aspects of storytelling. Whether you're writing a novel, a short story, or screenplay, strong characters make your audience care about what happens next. If your characters feel real and engaging, your readers will be invested in their journey. So, this is going to be a step by step guide to crafting memorable characters. Because you can have the greatest plot in the world, but if your characters are boring, if they're stale, or if they don't grow throughout the novel, your readers won't be as compelled to turn to the next page, right? So let's figure out how to make these characters interesting so that your readers keep flipping the pages. So number one, we want to start with a strong foundation. Before diving into dialogue or actions, you need to figure out who your character is. So you want to write a few sentences about each of your main characters, and then maybe a few sentences about your secondary characters as they make an appearance. Now you might be able to come up with a couple secondary characters at the front of your novel before you start writing, but the chances are those secondary characters are going to appear as you write the novel. So the only thing you really need to focus on now is your main characters. So ask yourself, what is my character's name? What is my character's age? And what is their background? It can just be a couple of sentences. Don't spend too much time pre-planning or you'll never get to the actual writing part. That is, the way I feel about that. So, where does your character live? What kind of world surrounds them? So this can be also part of your world building. Remember, you're bringing your readers into your world. So, where does your character live? What's their world like? Is it similar to ours, or is it totally different? Are they leaving Earth and going to another planet, or do they live on another planet? Figure those things out before you start writing, because it will shape your book and it will shape your characters. So then, what is your character's occupation and how does that shape them? Remember, as humans, we often become defined by the roles that we play. And that can be your career. A lot of professionals are very defined by their jobs. Just think about any lawyers or real estate agents that or insurance agents, or doctors, or therapists. Those types of people tend to be very, very, very focused on their jobs. That's their identity. If you're a scientist, you say, I'm a scientist. I'm a novelist. So, obviously, I'm very defined by my job. Who am I beyond being a novelist and a writer? You know what? I may not know that answer. And your character may not know that answer. But try and write a few things on that and explore that. Is your character their job? Or do they have outside interests? Or, what about them makes them unique? All right, let's move on. Because a well thought out foundation helps create depth and realism in your character's personality. So, number two, define your character's goals and motivations. So, every compelling character has a goal, something they want to achieve, and a motivation, the reason behind why they do what they do. So ask yourself, what does my character want more than anything else? Why do they want it, and what happens if they don't achieve it? Think about those things. And you can bring yourself into this too. What do you want more than anything else? Is that the same thing your character wants? Why do you want the thing you want? And then what happens if you don't achieve the thing that you want or your character doesn't? This is part of that writing what you know, and digging deep within yourself can help you create better characters that are believable. So, with that in mind, remember to give your character strengths and flaws. Your character must have flaws because perfect characters are boring. No one wants to read about a perfect character. They have to have flaws. And this means that the best characters have strengths and weaknesses that make them interesting and believable. Remember those detective novels? The hard-boiled detective novels. Every brilliant detective was usually an alcoholic, right? They usually drank a lot. I was a few weeks ago I was watching Dick Tracy. Or no, was it Dick Tracy? No, it wasn't. It was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It was there's a movie about Dick Tracy too, but I was watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the detective in that story is an alcoholic because his brother was killed by a tune, right? So this detective is flawed, and he's got issues, man. He's got my brother was killed by a tune issues. Give your characters strength and flaws like that character was given strengths and flaws. So, because a well-balanced mix of strengths and weaknesses creates a dynamic that leads to a relatable character. So 4, develop your develop your character's personality and voice. If you don't have a personality and a voice, and actually, we can talk about that too. Part of being a writer is developing your own writing personality and your own writing voice. So as you do this, you're also creating your voice and your writing personality. And those are very, very, very important for being a writer, for being a successful writer. Because when you think about it, every idea has already been written. Some form of it has already been written. The person that brings it to life and makes it stand out is you. You. So your personality and your voice are just as important as your character's personality and his or her voice. So, your character's personality should shine through their actions, dialogue, and thoughts. So, consider, how do they speak? Is it formal? Is it sarcastic? Do they seem shy? Are the words confident? How does your character speak? And some good books to read as far as figuring out how a character speaks. You can go to Stephen King's got an older style where he puts in the accent marks and clips the words. That's a way to define your character. Maybe they're going to say, I'm gonna go to the store. So you would write I''MAGONNA to the store, right? Versus another one of your characters might say, I am going to the store. Those are how they speak, right? So then, what kind of humor does your character have? Mine tend to have dry, sarcastic, kind of dark humor. That's kind of my humor, so it comes through in the stories. But your character might be all slapsticky, or they might have some juvenile humor, like maybe they laugh at fart jokes or something like that. And how does your character handle conflict and stress? Think about that. How does your character handle conflict and stress? Number 5, give your character a backstory. Like I was talking about the detective in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He's got a backstory. He ran a successful detective agency with his brother until his brother was murdered by a tune, right? So his detective agency is now failing, but that's his backstory, right? And then to compound the plot, his next case involves a tune, Roger Rabbit. So give your character a backstory and make it tie into the plot. It's very important. So Like I was saying, what major life event shaped your character? Does your character have any fears, regrets, or past traumas? How does your character view the world because of their experiences? A compelling backstory adds richness to your character's personality, and it kind of moves their actions along too. It can also help you with the plot. Number 6, create meaningful relationships with your character. Now, this doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be friendships. It can be people they work with. Remember, every communication you have with another person is a form of relationship. Remember, as humans, we have friends, we have family, we have coworkers, and we have acquaintances. All of those are different types of relationships. So, which relationships are meaningful for your character and which ones are superficial? Who are the most important people in their lives? Who are the least? How do they treat their friends, family, and strangers? Do they have any enemies or rivals? Relationships add emotional depth and give readers more ways to connect with your characters. Number 7, remember the conflict. Put your character in some conflict. Conflict drives stories. It can be internal conflict or external, right? They can be wrestling with themselves, or they can be wrestling with an outside force. Or some authors are very good at doing both. Your character is wrestling with themselves and an external force. And your character should face challenges that test their beliefs, their strengths, and all of that. So, what obstacles does your character face? How do they respond to failure? What lessons do they learn along the way? Characters grow and become more engaging when they struggle, adapt, and change. The key word here is adapt and change. Your character should not be the same at the front of the story as they are at the end of the story. There should be growth and change and learning. Very important. So, 8. With that in mind, you must let your character evolve. By the end of your story, your character should have changed in some way, which is what I just said. So, think about, how is your character different from when the story began? Did they achieve their goal, or did their desires change? What did your character learn about themselves? A strong character arc makes a story feel complete and satisfying, especially if they grow and change and become a stronger, better character at the end, right? And to wrap it all up, creating compelling characters takes time and effort, but it's one of the most rewarding parts of writing. Remember, these are characters that you care about. If you care about your character, your reader is going to care about your character. You should wake up, when you're writing a story about an important set of characters that mean a lot to you, you will go to bed thinking about these characters. You will wake up thinking about these characters. And that's how you know that they're important. And it's one of the most interesting, parts of writing. By giving your characters goals, flaws, and depth, you are crafting stories that resonate with your readers. So I implore you to keep exploring, experimenting, and trying to give your books interesting characters. You may not achieve that with your first book, but as you keep, or your first story, but as you keep going, your characters will get more and more interesting, and you'll get better and better at writing. So, I want to wish you good luck on your next story. I hope this video helped you create a compelling character, and I hope to see you published on Amazon. All right, so thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. If you feel like supporting the channel, there are links for Buy Me a Coffee and GoFundMe in the description. Have a wonderful day.